Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Corner, or welcome if you are new. And welcome to this horror franchise movie review video as part of my current April 2024 series, where I'm taking a look at the entire Evil Dead franchise. So the first two movies I've watched and reviewed, those are up on my channel if you want to check them out as part of this series. Today we're going to go ahead and start the movies that I've never seen before, at least not up until this series review. So the first two movies, as I mentioned, I had seen once or twice before. But this movie and the subsequent movies after this, I have never seen before, even though I have them in my collection. So today, of course, we're going to take a look at the third movie, the final movie of the original trilogy, and that is Army of Darkness from 1992. I have on Blu-ray the Screwhead edition here. That's got some nice Blu-ray exclusives and special features here. Some of which I looked at, some which I haven't yet. Just haven't had time, but trying to adjust the lighting there. But yeah, Army of Darkness, a movie I've never seen before until now. So let's just go ahead and get into it. Army of Darkness is a 1992 American dark fantasy comedy film, directed, co-written, and co-edited by Sam Raimi. The film is the third installment in the Evil Dead film series and the sequel to Evil Dead 2. So basically it follows Ash as he is trapped in the Middle Ages and battles the undead in his quest to return to the present. That's sort of the synopsis. So having been accidentally transported to the Middle Ages, Ash Williams is captured by Lord Arthur's men, who suspect him of being a spy for Duke Henry, with whom Arthur is at war. He is enslaved along with the captured Henry. His shotgun and chainsaw are confiscated, and he is taken to Arthur's castle. Ash is thrown in a pit where he kills a deadite and regains his weapons from Arthur's wise men. After demanding that Henry and his men be set free and killing the deadite publicly, Ash is celebrated as a hero. He grows attracted to Sheila, the sister of one of Arthur's fallen knights. According to the wise men, the only way that Ash can return to his time through the magical Necronomicon Ex Mortis. According to the wise men, the only way that Ash can return to his time is through the magical Necronomicon Ex Mortis. Ash then starts his search for the Necronomicon. As he enters the haunted forest, an unseen force pursues Ash into a windmill, and he crashes into a mirror. Small reflections of Ash in the mirror shards come to life and antagonize him, with one becoming a life-size copy of him, which Ash dismembers and buries. So yeah, that's the sort of the setup, the premise, the beginning of Army of Darkness from 1992. As far as the cast goes, of course, we have Bruce Campbell as Ash Williams and Evil Ash. We have Embeth Davids as Sheila, Marcus Gilbert as Lord Arthur, Ian Abercrombie as Wiseman, and Richard Grove as Duke Henry the Red. So that's the setup, the premise, and the cast for Army of Darkness from 1992. Having watched this for the first time, I can honestly say I really had a good time with this movie. I really enjoyed it. And, well, it is quite a bit different than the first couple Evil Dead movies. I'm going to tell you why in my review it worked for me. So let's just go ahead and get into my review for Army of Darkness. So, starting out with the fact, I really like the new setting in this movie. You know, being set in the Dark Ages, 1300 AD. It gives the whole Evil Dead idea sort of a new arena to perform and play in, if you will. And that really stood out the most to me. As I mentioned when I reviewed Evil Dead 2, it was basically a rehash of the first movie, with just the character of Ash being amped up and having more of a comedic tone than a horror tone. But it was the same setting, the same cabin, the same woods. A lot of things fell the same way. Excuse me. In terms of what Ash had to do, like decapitating his girlfriend who became a deadite. Just a lot of the same beats, and that didn't sit as well with me with Evil Dead 2. With this movie, it's a fresh start. Well, not a fresh start, but a fresh setting start. And sort of a different story here, taking off from Evil Dead 2, and I really enjoyed it. Yeah, it was great. I really liked the setting and the atmosphere of that setting. You know, Bruce Campbell, what can you say? This is him at his best in this movie. I think this is his best it's my favorite version of Ash. It's my favorite Bruce Campbell version, or I should say, my favorite Bruce Campbell performance is Ash. He's at his absolute best in this movie. Like I said, I love the performance of Campbell. It's definitely my favorite version of Ash in all the Evil Dead movies that I've seen so far. Still has the one-liners and the kick-ass moments, just like you had in Evil Dead 2, but I think it's even better here. With the funny slapstick moments mixed in, where Ash is, either getting his ass kicked or kicking somebody else's ass. You have the reactions and all that. It's just wonderful. It just really worked for me in this movie. Just a second, guys. I got to take a drink. I'm gonna end up coughing up a storm otherwise. Okay, sorry about that. Let's see. Absolutely love the practical effects once again in this movie. Which all three of these movies, that's the one consistent thing you could say. I think the effects by Raimi and Campbell are really, really top notch for different reasons. In this movie, of course, you don't have the gore effects or even you have makeup effects, but not to the extent you did in Evil Dead 2. But the practical effects in general in this movie, especially the stop motion skeletons, who are part of the Army of Darkness and the Deadites, their look, their movements, it's all just excellent. And also the look of the Deadites in terms of the makeup effects are still top notch. It might not be quite as high as Evil Dead 2, because you don't see as many Deadites. Like I said, it's more of the skulls and the skeletons in this movie. But the practical effects once again are great. And I think like the other effects in the movie, like the explosions and the things happening in the sky and just the general effects aside from gore and makeup are the best in this movie. And that's of course because this movie had a bigger budget than Evil Dead 2, which of course had a bigger budget than the original Evil Dead, and that really shows in this movie as well. And I thought they did really well with it. So yeah, big fan of the effects in this movie, the non-gore effects. The comedy actually worked really well for me in this movie, much more than the last one, because I've been thinking about this. I think in the last one they tried to do this combination of horror and comedy, which, if you know me and other people as well, that's a very difficult thing to do. Only a few movies have done it in the history of horror comedies, comedy horrors, in my opinion at least. And I haven't seen all of them, but that second movie, I just don't think it knew what it wanted to be, and it repeated too many of the beats of the first movie in terms of story and actions and things like that, and setting, of course. This movie was all new when it came to that stuff, and it didn't try to be horrific. It's definitely not as horror as the first two movies are. And I think that's probably why the comedy worked, because they didn't have to do the balancing act here. They didn't have to go half-ass with one or the other. They were free to just make this like an action comedy movie and just go for it. And I think that really works in this movie. Much better for me than it did Evil Dead 2. Now, I know I might be in the minority, but that's just how I feel about the comedy in this movie. Whether it's Ash's physical comedy, his one-liners, the other characters' responses, it all just really came through on the screen, and it really worked well for me in this movie. So, yeah, definitely a thumbs up on the tone and the comedy here. I really enjoyed the main villain of Evil Ash, who's also, of course, played by Bruce Campbell. I just thought that was a great idea, a great sort of almost like Superman 3 kind of thing, the good versus the evil. That was a lot of fun. Great makeup effects on the Evil Ash, the origins of him and how Ash sort of creates him in a way. That's just a lot of fun that he goes against himself in a lot of ways, and I thought it was brilliant, a brilliant idea to add something new to this mythology. Still has the same camera panning through the woods, the movements that I really like from the first two movies, representing the evil that's moving. So that's definitely a pro. And then finally, Raimi's directing is the most fun and just the most balls to the walls in this movie. He really lets it go here without hesitation or without again trying to throw in the horror or trying to throw in the gore. I'll get into the gore here in a minute, but I don't know. I just think Raimi's direct. You can tell that he's from 81 to 87 to 92, his directing has improved with each of these movies, in my opinion. In the same way that I think Bruce Campbell's portrayal of Ash Williams has improved in each movie. So, yeah, I think there's been a nice arc there, a nice, what do you call it, like climb between those two in all three of these movies. And that really came across well in this one. Okay, getting into the cons, because it is not a perfect movie. Obviously, there's very little, if any, true horror in this movie, and I kind of knew that going in. The fact that it doesn't even mention horror. It's a 1992 American dark fantasy comedy film, kind of more in the vein of like The Burbs or something like that. So I kind of knew that going in, that it wasn't going to scare me. Like I said, much more of a dark action comedy kind of movie that won't scare you. But if you're like me, you will enjoy and have a lot of fun with it, nonetheless. Now, one thing that I think is a true, that's more of just kind of letting you know that it's not a horrific movie. So if you're looking to be scared, then this probably isn't the one for you. One thing that is a true con that I think they could have done more with is the gore. They really toned down the blood and the gore in this one quite a bit. Somewhat to its detriment, although not totally. Compared to the previous two movies, of course, especially the second one where the gore, well, even the first one, they both had balls to the walls gore in them. And the gore was great because it was practical. I don't think they needed to tone it down as much as they did in this movie. I think they still could have had the great story and the great portrayal here and directing and everything. We'll still had some more gore, like when Ash goes to kill the Deadites. At the certain moments that he does in this movie, I think they could have done more there and had some more blood and gore mixed in, more of the carnage candy on screen. And I think the movie might have been even better if that's possible. And obviously, you can tell I really like this movie, but I don't think there was any reason to tone down the gore that much to where there really isn't any. To be quite honest with you, especially the fact that this movie was rated R, that kind of surprised me. And truthfully. And I guess this is the ratings board more than anything. This movie totally could have been and should be PG-13 in my opinion. Yes, I think there's an F-bomb here or there. So if they're just making it rated R for the language, I think that's pretty weak. I think the ratings board basically was trying to get revenge on Raimi and Campbell with the first two movies there. Because originally I thought they even wanted to make it NC-17, which is absolutely ridiculous. There's absolutely nothing in this movie that would warrant that. In fact, I'll say this. I have a 7-year-old son, and the first movie he's going to watch in the Evil Dead franchise is this one. Probably because, like the other two movies, I don't know about the ones after this, the remake and its sequel. There's no way he's watching either of the first two movies until he's at least well into his teenage years, for me. But this movie, I could see him watching at 10 or 11, frankly. I mean, other than the skeletons, there's nothing scary. There's a little bit of bad language. There's no nudity. There's no gore. So I don't, this is the tamest movie, the tamest version of an Evil Dead movie, I should say. So again, it was the ratings board, the reason that this is rated R. It really doesn't warrant it. I could make the argument you could make this movie PG even. But PG-13 seems more appropriate. So just wanted to throw that in there. Well, I do like the supporting characters overall in this movie a bit more than I did in the last movie. They're still not as fleshed out or as interesting as I think they could have been or I would have liked them to be. But they're not terrible. They're not bad. But still something I have to bring up in the cons section. So, yeah, I really enjoyed Army of Darkness. I wasn't sure if I would or not because comedy is one of those subjective things, and I think I like comedy more when they don't try to combine it with horror. I think that's what I'm finding out, although there's few exceptions to that, of course. Like the first movie's pure horror. This movie is pure comedy action, if you want to say. And those two movies work better for me than the second movie, which is trying to combine horror and comedy. And as a result, it has a little too much over-the-top comedy, not enough horror, at least from my standpoint. So I'm going to give Army of Darkness an 8 out of 10. I really had a good time with this movie. I was really entertained by it. It's my favorite Bruce Campbell performance, my favorite Ash character portrayal. 8 out of 10 for Army of Darkness from 1992. Go ahead and comment down below what you guys think of Army of Darkness. I do know there's people out there that don't like the fact that it's strictly comedy and it's missing the horror, although I think more of it is the fact that it's missing all the gore and the blood, which the Evil Dead movies came to be known for, at least the first two. And that I can get behind, that I can understand. But as far as the comedy goes, as I said, that worked for me. But comment down below your thoughts. Please like this video, hit the little notification bell down below, and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my upcoming reviews for this series or any of my great horror content beyond this series. I hope everybody's doing well, and as always, stay scared. Bye.